Welcome to the Autistic Mile. I'm your host, Jim Gaffney. Today we're going to be discussing special interest, hyperfocus, and structure. Three important topics that really cover a lot of ground with autistic people. Today I'm joined by my co-host, my son, Shane Gaffney. Shane, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. You?
I'm doing well. Finished off the workday and we're doing a podcast. So we're gonna jump right in and we're gonna get into some good content here. Um, so Shane, what's first up on our list? What's our first mile marker today?
First up is special interests.
Okay, well, special interest. Everybody's got hobbies, interests, things that they enjoy doing in their leisure time. I think with autistic people, I think special interests kind of takes a front seat because special interests are what drives us. So we each have things that motivate us, but special interests in particular, hobbies. I think for autistic individuals, we tend to really focus on our interests. It's a way to decompress. They're a way to transition. They're a way for us to kind of regulate ourselves, and it allows us to kind of get away from the real world, so to speak, and get into something, immerse ourselves in something that could take our mind off of things. And like I said, it helps us in many different ways. Transitioning, it helps us enjoy things, obviously. Um, some of the special interests that pertain to me specifically, for those of you who watch the podcast, I'm an avid runner. I have been a runner for years. I've run 5 marathons and other races of various distances. So for me, a special interest has always been running, fitness, and I kind of enjoy the repetitiveness of running. Kind of, you can, like I said before, you can lose yourself and find yourself all at the same time while you're running. While you're focusing on the task of running and kind of on what it takes to do that and complete your physical journey, your mind is free to wander and really kind of engage in other things. So for me, running has always been an interest that weighs heavily for me. Another interest of mine is music. Here at the Autistic Mile, although I don't sing music and I don't play an instrument, I do write lyrics to songs that touch me, that touch upon life, things that are important to me. But the love of music began a long time ago. And I think, Shane, you'll probably attest to this. Music for me has always kind of been a crutch. It's always been something I turn to, something that I enjoy as a special interest, but something I kind of seek solace in. For you, you have something else, and that happens to be video games, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and that's something that that is a major interest for you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the video games and how they help you through a day, or either during the day or after a tough day?
All right. Well, my interest in video games really started off as sort of a intentional means of, well, trying to comfort myself after a hard day because I saw it as something that's easy to do, something you could do at any time, and that it doesn't require a lot of investment, but you get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And over time, it sort of evolved into its own thing with me, where like I get invested in the characters and the story. I use it as a way to sort of like feel like I'm accomplishing something because it's something I've become very good at over the years. And well, yeah, that's something that can really boost your self esteem, knowing that you have something that you can turn to if you don't feel confident at really anything else.
Yeah, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think, and I understand that's I mean, that's good for you. Each individual has to focus on their own needs. So for you, it's video games. You find comfort, you find enjoyment in that, and probably similar for you, it makes time pass quicker, and it's a good tool for you. For me, music. Fortunately for me, I can play music anytime I want. Unfortunately, video games, you can't play video games while you're driving. You could, but you probably wouldn't make it very far. For me, I can listen to music on my way to work, on my way home from work. For me, music's always there. It's always something I can turn on, and have ready. And it's just something uh, that it brings me a lot of joy. So, and again, I find like you find meanings in the video games that you play. I find meaning in the music and the lyrics that I listen to from other artists, and that's one of the reasons I like writing lyrics myself, even though I'm not a musician. Uh, I enjoy the exercise of putting my thoughts to paper and creating those. And I know when you went to Full Sail University for video game design, you got to design video games, so you got to apply that in the real world. So uh, we've each taken steps in that direction to kind of pursue our interests just beyond a normal level. And as far as your video games go, I mean, you played them since you were young. You went to college for video game design. Obviously, that's not something you're doing today. You work on the podcast here at Autistic Mile Productions. I know you still, video games still they carry a lot of weight for you, and they provide you with a lot of enjoyment. If you had to pick one above all else, above all the games you ever played, what do you think would be at the top of your list?
Definitely Fire Emblem Three Houses, which definitely is my favorite game to date, which ironically came out around the same time as my birthday. And it's
Hmm.
actually a game I plan to be talking about on my side series, The Idealist, as well, like in my next episode, as of the time of recording this.
Well, that's good. That's a good. Why don't we unpack that a little bit? We'll talk about the idealist. So, you and I started talking about having a segment that was really something you could run with. Something it would be a little brief, but something that you could kind of share with our viewers, characters and games and things that you thought that were important to you, and illustrate how they help you, how they've inspired you. So the idealist, you published your second short video today, and those both came out great. And I know you'll get better with it over time. Um, but that's just another example of taking something that an interest, special interest that you enjoy, and kind of taking it to the next level. Now you're sharing it with others. You're not obviously the only one that likes video games. You're not the only one that enjoys characters. For me, I enjoy characters in movies and things like that. Uh, so for you and I, the psychological part of it is very similar. Uh, I derive mine from movies and TV shows, or you derive yours from video games and probably movies and things like that to a certain extent, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean, it shows us. I mean, those passions they start out. I think when we're younger as autistic individuals, I think most of us have the tendency to latch onto something, we find something in our early years that brings us pleasure, that brings us joy, something that we find comfort in, and I think that kind of stays with us over time. It's just something that we don't get tired of. It evolves, but it's something we always go back to. It becomes a part of our personality. Really, it's kind of who we are. Um, like I said, you'll find a lot of people on the spectrum. They have interests which they've probably loved since childhood, and it's carried them in adulthood. It becomes a tool, and so to speak. It becomes part of their coping mechanism. It becomes part of the way that allows them to deal with the world, or decompress, or find, or regulate to a certain degree. or just simply find joy. It doesn't have to serve a higher purpose, but a lot of times it does. It can reduce our stress levels. It can, like I said, bring us joy and bring us understanding too. Because when we're immersed in these things, we're immersed in to the extent that we're invested personally in these things. We invest ourselves in the music. We listen to it all the time. We have favorite artists. We have favorite games. We have favorite characters, whether it's in a TV show, a movie, or a video game. And we invest ourselves in these things. And I think we look for the qualities that uh, not only that resonate with us, that the qualities we want to see in others. Those things, I know, in watching your episode 1 of The Idealist, you and I see we approach things from a different angle, but we approach things similarly. We're looking for the positives in the characters, or sometimes the negatives. Negatives doesn't make somebody a bad character. Everybody has flaws, but I think we're looking for those qualities. We're looking for characters that we can that resonate with us and provide us with some level of understanding as we relate to the world around us. Does that sound accurate enough?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. We're going to move on to the next segment. We're going to move on to the next marker. What's the next marker, Shane?
The next one is hyperfocus.
Hyperfocus. I could go on about this forever. Too bad we only have 10 minutes to talk about this subject. Hyperfocus is it's a slippery slope. I mean, when you have autism uh, and you and you have hyperfocus, you have the ability to hyperfocus. It really it really becomes a severe case of tunnel vision. I know for myself, when I get in the middle of something, a project or something at work, or just about anything, I can really super focus on what I'm doing, and everything else becomes secondary. And that hyper focus, it's a double-edged sword because it's good. It means I can stay on task. It means I can get a lot accomplished. um, but there's times where that hyper focus, I have trouble shutting it down. I have trouble. Uh, Not all tasks can be completed in a certain amount of time. Some tasks are so large, especially if it's related to a project or something at work. It's not a task that you can complete in 1 or 2 hours. It's meant to be something that's going to take days or weeks or who knows, months or years. So hyperfocus is good, but I find the challenge with hyperfocus is kind of unfocusing, kind of stepping away from that, especially between days or between sessions, because I get so focused on that, my mind is driven to complete tasks. It's driven to do something from start to finish. That hyper focus is something that is it really is a part of my being. When I get on something, I want to complete it. I've had to learn over the years. Well, some things you just can't do in a single sitting. You can't do in a day. You can't do in a couple days, and you have to. That's something that I've had to adjust to. But that doesn't mean. But for me, it's harder to put it down because I want to make as much progress today as I can because I want to achieve that goal. I want to finish that quest, if you will. Um, and it's even if I stop working on something for a day, uh, my brain continues to think about it, and that hyper focus. That just because I have had to stop, maybe I had to go somewhere, I physically have to do something else, but that hyper focus doesn't turn off. It just it just it's up here and it's running around, and I continue to work that out. So the next time I work on it, I'm going in at full steam instead of sitting down and going, okay, what do I have to focus on today? From the time I stopped doing it to the time I started doing it again, I've already given it tons of thought. It's good and it's bad. It's good in the fact that I'm accomplishing a lot in between sessions, but it's bad because I have trouble focusing on other things that need my attention. Um, and that's the downside of hyper focus when you're when when you need to focus on something else and you have trouble giving something else your full attention because you're still focused on what you were doing before. So those are the really some of the pros and cons of hyperfocus. It's good. It allows me to be productive in some areas, but it does cause some issues where maybe the next task I'm not devoting as much energy to because part of my brain and part of my being is still stuck trying to work out what I'm going to do next, and how I'm going to go, or which direction I'm going to take. Hyper focus is something that uh, no matter how old we get, it's always something that is a challenge to work through. It's not an easy thing to live with. It's good because you make a lot of progress, but it's bad because you feel like you're missing out on some other things because you just you can't switch that off. There's a switch that you turn on, and once it gets on, especially with a long term project, I have trouble switching it off. It's for me personally, it causes me I lose sleep over it, because my mind just doesn't shut down. It's not designed that you just don't say, okay, brain, we are done with this. We're done with today's task, and you're going to move on to this next task. If that next task happens to be something that requires my absolute full attention, and I actually have to focus on it, that's the only way, because I wouldn't have the mental capacity to keep focusing on the other thing. But as soon as I'm done with that next thing, I'm going to go right back to focusing on what I was doing originally. Even if it's days, it could be hours, days, weeks, months. It's just it's something. It's good and it's bad. It's a little bit of both. Have you experienced issues with hyperfocus in your life, Shane?
Yes, I have. For audiences that aren't familiar with what it's like, I would describe it as kind of like the flow state, if you know what that is. Basically, those times where you're so invested in something that like everything else around you kind of fades out and time flies without you really noticing. But sometimes it can be for good. Like sometimes you're really into like a passion or a hobby and you just enjoy so much that you start to forget your surroundings. And other times, sometimes that hyperfocus can end up getting latched onto something that's not really psychologically healthy. Like for me, sometimes, especially when I was younger, there were times where I would uh, latch on to bad memories and play out scenarios like, what if I said something differently? Like, why did this happen this way? What does it mean for my future? And sometimes that can lead to results, but ultimately, reliving the past doesn't change it. So you're kind of stuck in this cycle where you want to change something bad that happened, but it already happened. So you can't really do that. So it's very, very important to try and moderate yourself and notice when you're spiraling so it doesn't escalate into something bigger.
Yeah, well, I'm no stranger to spiraling. I've had, that focus or some of that that negative energy. Sometimes it could turn itself on you. It could be your best friend. Sometimes it could be your worst enemy. Um, I've seen that play out with myself. I've seen that play out with you. So uh, I know it's something that it's a struggle to go through that, and it's part of daily life. It's something uh, that if you're on the spectrum, if you're autistic, it's something that you've probably experienced before at some level. Like I said, we said before, not everybody is the same, but for those that experience hyperfocus or some of the pros and cons that go along with it, uh, it can present other challenges that go beyond completing tasks or uh, or putting down a task. It can exceed that and kind of spill over into other areas of our lives, and that's something where uh, I know for myself when to use the word compartmentalize, to try to put things in compartments and boxes so that we can keep this, you know, what's happening here separate from what's happening over here. That is not always an easy thing to do. So it's something uh, that we need to continue to work on, and just being aware of it makes it a little easier because at least you understand it and you can uh, continue to develop your skills so that as you get older, as you're aging, that you can get better at some of these things. And we almost always do. We may not get it perfect, but we almost always improve these areas that where we're deficient in. Um, time and practice, is really the key to that. It's not that we're practicing intentionally, but we've been through it so many times, it'd almost be impossible not to improve. Uh, so, and the one thing, after our last episode, I was thinking about, and it's something I didn't get a chance to comment on, but I know there's references to it frequently. People, we talk about the spectrum, and you have somebody at one end of the spectrum could be low functioning where they have extreme difficulty, and there's a lot of different ways that plays out, whether you're talking about somebody being nonverbal, or other communication problems. There are, if you have somebody at one end of the spectrum that's low functioning, and somebody at the higher end of the spectrum is considered high functioning, it's important for people to always understand that autism is autism. I thank God that I am on the higher end of the spectrum and I am capable of doing certain things. But one thing I think that gets lost in the conversation about autism is somebody hears high function and they think, oh, well, you got it easy. You're not really, you're kind of like us, but you're impacted a little bit. And that could be true to a degree, but it doesn't marginalize that you're autistic and you have certain challenges that neurotypical people do not have, and there's things you not need to navigate in your daily life. Part of being high functioning is the ability to work through some of these things and learn how to deal with them and develop your skill set, so that you can lead a life that's close to what people would consider normal. What's normal for me may not be normal for you, might not be normal for somebody else. We're always striving to be uh, as close to neurotypical as possible. People hear high function and they think, well, you're just kind of autistic. There's no such thing as kind of autistic. You're either autistic or you're not, and there's challenges that come along with that. But I acknowledge that there's a big difference between somebody that's high functioning and somebody who is at the lower end of the spectrum. And that's not to diminish anybody on the spectrum. There's just a lot of different flavors. We talk about flavors of autism. It comes in a lot of shapes and sizes, but everybody that's autistic has things that they're dealing with, things that they have to manage that are not things that neurotypical people have to manage, and it makes things more difficult each and every day because of that. Now, if you're on the higher end of the spectrum, as I am, and I didn't know it for a lot of years, you've spent a lot of years developing your skill set. The person I am today and the skill set I have today is not the person and the skill set, when I was 9, 10, 15, who knows. In those years, as I was developing those skills, I got better over time. And I learned how to mask and I learned how to cope with certain things. So we always get better, but so to see as my 56-year-old self looking back at my 10-year-old self has made vast improvements, but that doesn't mean that everyday life is not still difficult to navigate. There's still not challenges there. And that's what people need to understand. It's just, it doesn't go away. You just don't get a shot. You don't go to the doctor and say, okay, yep, you're cured. You're not autistic anymore. You'll always be autistic. Like I said, most of us get better at it over time. And that's a byproduct of life and developing those tools, our own internal tool chest of what we need to manage our autism, what we experience personally. All right. Well, what's mile marker 3?
The last one is structure.
Structure. Okay. Structure is so important. I mean, it's important for a lot of people. Uh, some people don't have any structure in life whatsoever, and they can live like that. And I find that difficult to comprehend. I find it's difficult for me because I know that that structure is so important to me. Uh, and if that structure is breaks down, or if there's something that impacts that structure. There's a lot of different things that go into when you talk about structure. Your daily routine, time management, the environments that you're in, whether it's home, work, school, social environment. um, these are all things that make up our structure. What are we comfortable, what is most comfortable for us, and what is the structure that we've put in place that helps us best navigate daily life. So the structure, again, and I know we both have issues with structure, as far as uh things going through changes. Something gets changed in a day. You thought you know what your schedule was going to be today, but something changes. Even with the podcast, sometimes we don't always record our podcast on the same day. I'd like to, but there's things that get in the way. So sometimes we have to push that. And I know for you, that's probably a personal challenge. And for me, it is as well. Sometimes it's unavoidable. We have to work. There's things that need to get done. So sometimes we don't always get to it on the day that we'd like or the time that we'd like. Uh, so, from a routine structure, from a planning point of view, uh, I know, tell me your thoughts on that as it pertains to you, Shane, as far as the scheduling and some of the structure around, around changes like that.
Like I would say, like structure, like scheduling, it actually wasn't too much of a problem for me growing up. Like because back then your responsibilities aren't really as well intense per se. Like usually the worst that happens is like say you get like I don't know, a bad grade at school or something like that. But as you get older, obviously those responsibilities stack on top of each other. And like in a unstable environment, often that can cause an autistic person to develop these sorts of tendencies like more than they otherwise have. So in those situations, like usually it's a person who is autistic will try to establish boundaries or some sort of safe space or something else of the sort, like taking breaks if they can, like if they feel overwhelmed. Usually it's fine as long as there's enough time to process everything. Usually I find it's at its worst when there's like multiple things that happen back to back and it all just catches you unaware and you don't really know how to deal with that.
Yeah. Well, I think transition is a word that we use a lot when it comes to autism. We transition from one activity to the next, or one environment to the next. It's something Transitioning is a word that is closely associated with autism. Everybody transitions during a day. You transition from your morning routine to getting to work. Most people, you transition. You're in your work schedule. While you're at work, you're transitioning between different settings. You may be transitioning to meetings. You may be transitioning to a social lunch with some colleagues, or something. Even at work, there could be multiple transitions at work. So transitioning is a meaningful part, and how we transition. Uh, Transition can be difficult for autistic adults, or any autistic individual. Um, for me, I think the biggest transitioning challenge is going from work to home. Uh, because I've spent so much of my day uh, kind of being hyper focused on work and doing everything I can and doing my work to the best of my ability. Uh, Even a long car ride home sometimes, that transition period, it's a difficult transition because you've gone from working all day to now I'm supposed to relax. I don't really do relaxing very well. You know, my mind is used to being occupied, is used to having a challenge. When I don't have something, a challenge in front of me, it's almost like I don't know how to relax sometimes, or I don't know what to do with myself if I don't have something to work on. Um, so structure for me, even in terms of that, even in terms of my daily routine, transitioning is a difficult part, and it's something I still continue to work at. Um, but having stability in those environments as you transition through them is important. You know, we've discussed various challenges I had when I was growing up in school. I know you had challenges when you were going to school. So transitioning between environments wherever you are at that point in your life, whether it's home, school, job, home, they come in different combinations, but that could be, I think, one of the biggest parts, and the hardest parts for us is to kind of go from one setting to another. Because you're just it makes it a challenge. Now you got to give something up and you got to dive into something else. Um, so the structure that we put in place for ourselves, and that I want to use the word crave. We crave structure. Most autistic adults want to have that structure. They want to have that apparatus. They want to know they want to know that as they're transitioning through these different environments, that they're stable environments, whether it's home, whether it's work, or whether it's a social setting. Stability, as you mentioned, is an important part of of what we're looking for in our structure. A stable environment, some place where I can feel safe and do what I need to do. You want to be able to have a job which you enjoy your colleagues. The stability in the workplaces makes it easier for an autistic adult to do their job and to transition both before and after. Stability is always a key in any environment. I know for myself, when I'm going from environment to environment, if I and I'll leave work out of it for a few minutes. I'm going to talk about maybe weekends when I transition from home to going to a store or multiple stores, or I'm doing other things on the weekend. Find that that takes more planning, because I'm going at work. I'm coming to an environment where it's stable, where I know everybody, and I pretty much know what to expect from everybody. Um, when you put yourself in a public setting, you're transitioning into an arena of chaos. As far as an autistic person goes, when they go out in public, they're transitioning to chaos. That's how it feels to us. We don't know, you can't understand what to expect. You don't know what challenges you're going to be faced with, and it's difficult to prepare yourself for that. For that onslaught to your senses, because you don't know who you're going to meet while you're out there. You don't know what the situation is going to be, and you're going to be expected to react to that and interact with people in that space. And it's not a stable transition, because you don't know what you're getting into. If you go to a store, you don't know what to expect that day. Depending on what time you go. For me, planning when I go into a public space is important. If I go to a store, or if I go to somewhere socially, I want to try to control that to a degree that I'm comfortable with. Can I go at a time where I think it would present less risk in terms of some of the number of people, the number of sounds, the things that I'm going to be bombarded with, the things that I have to deal with without making it seem like I'm a crazy person. We all get annoyed if somebody slow at the store and they take up half the aisle, or there's 100 different examples I can give you of things that might trigger me at a store. Not trigger me in a way where I'm going to have or I'm going to shut down, but things that I find uncomfortable, and I just think I think are unnecessary. Somebody could that the other person on the end of that, whoever is exhibiting that behavior, is not taking consideration other people around them. And I always, for me, that's always frustrating because I always try to be mindful of the people around me.
Well, I find that like the desire for structure, it actually applies even to things like, say, conversation, because I know for me, when it comes to talking person to person, like sometimes I can have exactly the thing I want to say in my mind, and I do my best to memorize it. But the moment I start talking, I sort of just forget my sentence as I say it, and that causes me to stumble over my words. But regarding public settings, strangely, I actually find that easy to deal with, like relative to, well, situations where I'm with, say, someone that's significant to my life in some way, because, like, public settings, they can obviously be, well, scary to many autistic individuals. I know it was scary to me for a good chunk of my life. But eventually I came to the realization that, like, no matter what ends up happening, like, most of those people you're only going to see, like, once in your life, and then you never see them again. So it's not really going to impact you at all. So usually my only problem with those kinds of settings is when something completely unexpected happens that derails your expectations of what you were supposed to be in for, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. It's not easy. You know, any of us that we go outside and we go in the public arena, we're going to be subjected to things that we don't know what's going to happen. We have very little control over what happens around us. I think it's something we should always be mindful, but I think the process for autistic adults, autistic individuals, it's more of a challenge because they don't excel in those situations to begin with. So, it's not a matter of planning or anything. It just can be it's just not something they're comfortable with, and it can and it presents. It's one of the major challenges I think to that when we talk about structure, because it's not something we can control. We do our best to control our environment. We do our best to control behavior, control the things that we can. When you go into the public arena, you lose that control. You can't control much outside of what you're doing yourself. So, well, I think that was good. I think we covered a lot. Hopefully, our audience finds it interesting. Again, we'll be. I would urge our listeners to look out for new episodes of the Idealist, which is going to be hosted by Shane. Just short videos of Shane himself for the weekly segments. Shane and I will be continuing to do our regular Autistic Mile segments. I hope our audience will continue to enjoy that. We are looking to build our audience, so if you like the content you're seeing and you enjoy the back and forth and some of the content that we're creating, I would suggest that you subscribe to our page. We want to continue to put out different content and meaningful content. We want to make sure that that we're providing that information that people need. The world's getting to be a bigger place. The autism numbers are growing, so it's something that they have to be mindful of, and we want to do our part to give that meaningful information and help guide people where we can. So I appreciate you guys joining us today. Until next time, remember, every mile matters. Take care.